Hello and welcome back to the Fit Pro podcast. You are with your guest host for today, Ben Coomber, host of the UK's #1 health and fitness podcast, Ben Coomber Radio. I am here to evolve conversations to help coaches, personal trainers, practitioners become better at their jobs, help inspire more change, and ultimately get more results in our clients, right? That's the end game. I have a guest with me today. I have Linia Patel. She is from a university. She's currently doing a PhD, so that means she's far more intelligent than me, and hopefully we'll get some really good answers today on a lot of cool topics. Linia, hello.
Hello, Ben.
Welcome to the show. I initially, in my show questions, put, right, we're going to find out about Linia, we're going to see what she's up to, but you've been on the Fit Pro podcast before, so you've probably already talked about that.
I have indeed. I've done 2 podcasts with FitPro, one on protein powders and one on iron intake. So hopefully hearers will know who I am. But just to give a quick summary, I am a dietitian and a sports nutritionist, and I'm also currently doing a PhD. So I try to put together kind of my research backing my very strong science background and translate that into just very simple language about nutrition, which I can then give to our coaches who can then give on to their clients.
So when I was looking at what you do in your role and your background in qualifications, which is quite diverse, I kind of looked at your qualifications and thought, wow, that's a lot, that's experience, that's a lot of study, and that's brilliant. But what I might think from a trainer's point of view is kind of like, when I look at your knowledge and I think, oh wow, to be able to do what you do, I need your knowledge. But I don't always feel that's the case, and I think trainers, in my eyes, can sometimes get caught up. And don't get me wrong, continual learning is really important. But we can get in this habit of just learn, and not really pay attention to our environment and our clients and what's actually really important. So with all your knowledge, I'd love to find out what you find kind of it all boils down to of what's really important to look at when it comes to nutrition with clients and actually getting them to change.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely spot on. And I think this is why, whilst I love being a little bit of a nerd, I've always kept my foot on the ground. I've always kept my foot in clinical work. I've always done a lot of writing. I love writing. I love communicating. So communicating complex science into very, very tangible, easy to digest nutrition for the everyday people. But I think probably one of the biggest things that I always go back to is the one size fits all. One size doesn't fit all, and the need for one size fits all. No, definitely not. The one size doesn't fit all, and the need for individualization. And I think actually by doing more studying and by understanding how complex actually our physiology is, that always helps me go back to the fact that, okay, so even if I'm a paleo fan, or even if I'm all about low carbohydrate or about eating carbohydrate, actually that might work for one person, but it's not going to work for everybody. So how can I get something that's very individualistic for my client to get the best outcomes?
Do you think, in your experience, trainers ask enough questions and do enough in their kind of assessment process to really individualize for the client?
Yes and no, and I think I don't think you can generalize. I think some do and some don't. And I'm a sports nutritionist, and I tell you what I love working about. What I love about working in sports medicine is this idea of a multidisciplinary team. So the way it works in sports medicine is you have a team, a sports doctor, a physiologist, strength and conditioning coach, and then you have a nutritionist. And what you all do is you do your individual profession to the maximum, but you work with each other to get the best outcome for that client. And I think for me, that's the key. So PTs and coaches might be specialists in one area, but if you're trying to be a jack of all trades and be brilliant in everything, you have to be realistic with yourself and say, hold on, actually, if this client in front of me has actually got some sort of eating disorder, am I actually qualified to be talking through cognitive behavioral therapy and mindful eating, or should I be referring on? Because actually I do the PT bit and I know some general nutrition really well, but if they need a little bit more, at what point do I refer on? And actually the importance of working in a multidisciplinary team and letting experts be their experts is really, really powerful for me.
I love that. I'm going to be honest. When I was a young trainer, I think I was, I'm going to say a little bit arrogant in that I did all my training and I kind of thought, oh, I know a bit about nutrition and training and back pain and movement. And I kind of ended up doing everything. And I think I ended up doing most of it poorly because I knew, just not enough to be great. How would you go about a trainer expanding their network and kind of building that team? Because I can imagine many trainers listening to this are working self-employed in a big gym, lots of people, lots of trainers, and they probably don't even know or have that network to currently. How would you advise they create that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate because I've worked with a lot of really good trainers in the past, and the way I've gotten to have a relationship with them is basically I have a client who has a personal trainer, and then for my nutrition plan to work really well, I'll say, can I have a phone call with your personal trainer? Exactly. Or I've done some talks in different gyms and I've got a relationship with personal trainers that way. But if a PT wants to build their network, I would just say start looking at things like, for example, freelance dietitians is an association. And there's a whole list of dietitians in all the different areas in the UK. And you can see what their specialities are. You can drop them an email and you can start building that relationship with them. And it's the same with physiotherapists or sports doctors. They all have bodies. And it's all available nowadays. So actually doing a little bit of research, and then if you make one referral and you get good feedback, then you start building that relationship up.
I am very interested in your opinion around dietitians and nutritionists and what trainers can do and all the rest of it, because there seems to be a bit of an ongoing debate about remit of practice, and I think that's really important. Don't get me wrong, you've kind of highlighted that. But one of the trends that I started to see online with conversations around personal training and what they can and can't do is some practitioners were saying, you cannot give nutrition advice, go and refer to a dietitian. And where I see that breaking down is that for me, there's nothing wrong with sitting down in front of a client and saying, hey, do you know what? There's quite a lot of bad foods in the diet at the moment. How about we just sort of take these out and we get some veggies in and we start to move more and all the rest of it? And I think, honestly, where's the danger in that advice?
I think there's no danger in kind of preventative advice, but I think the danger is when PTs go the extra step and start eliminating food groups. If somebody has or they start saying somebody has an allergy and they're actually recommending that they eliminate whole food groups and they're not thinking of the long-term health. That's the danger. And I think this is the differentiation between nutritionists and dietitians. So nutritionist is basically someone who can do preventative work. Okay, so very general nutrition advice, whereas a dietitian actually works within a disease or condition and is very much more medically trained versus the prevention work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And I love.
And I think at the end of the day, I mean, so being a dietitian, I have to keep up my CPT points. I have a code of conduct I have to abide by. And it's the same with registered nutritionists. But if you're a nutritionist that doesn't necessarily even have a registration, then you can give whatever advice you want and there'll be no accountability. So I think as a consumer as well, I want to be putting my confidence in someone who I know at the end of the day, they're abiding to a certain code of conduct.
I think we should maybe sort of clarify for trainers where they can go to get that. I mean, for me, what I see is the AFN are trying to create a lot of framework around what is evidence-based practice in nutrition. Yeah. So I think if you're trying to do a nutrition course, make sure it is an AFN certified course.
That's great. Fantastic. That's good advice. AFN, absolutely. Nutrition Society, AFN is a good place to begin. Yeah.
Cool. So with all that being said and looking potentially specifically and then looking kind of globally, what do you think every trainer can go away and do? Maybe 3-5 different things that says, look, focus on this stuff and you're going to get the most impact with the most clients because they have the biggest impact on everything else.
Again, that's a really hard thing for me to give, Ben, because this whole idea that I have is that actually no client of mine is ever the same. So I don't ever give the same 3 tips to clients. Because I look at them as completely individual. So I'll probably say, I'll start with the basics first. I mean, it sounds so simple, but even like hydration, for example, how many people hydrate properly? And yet the fundamental fact is that we're 70 or 80% water. So actually, if you start off with the basics, and then from the basics you build on balance. So are people eating the right macronutrients? Is there enough protein, carbohydrates and fat on their plate? Are they eating at the right time? And then bringing into that the whole awareness of eating, so mindful eating. So when I see clients, I'm not uber prescriptive. I mean, if I'm seeing GB athletes, absolutely, I have to be very, very prescriptive. But in general, it's about teaching clients to get back to this idea of mindful eating. So, having an idea that healthy eating looks like this, but actually being in tune with their body.
One of my mistakes as a young coach is that because I was a practitioner that knew stuff, so I knew about nutrition and training, I would write out a plan and I would expect the client to follow the plan because quite often there was basic advice in there. So you just talked about water. I might say to my client, I want you to drink 3 litres of water a day and here's a couple of tips on making it taste good and stuff. And because you see that implementation is so basic, you quite often don't revisit it as a habit.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the problem lies. And I see this a lot in sleep. People assume that their clients are sleeping really well, because they're just trying, but they're often really not. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you pick a very good point. So it's important to actually think outside the box. So nutrition is one, physical activity is another factor, but stress and sleep is another big and very intricate cog in this whole lifestyle thing that we're looking at. So it's really important to tackle all areas as well. So, and again, tackle all areas, but if someone's having major sleep issues and you can give them some basic sleep hygiene and that's not working, then know when to refer on.
Big fan of sleep. I think it's a big factor in kind of linking everything else together.
Totally.
So my last question for the show, I'm interested in, my background is that I work on the ground teaching quite a lot of trainers and stuff and don't get involved a lot in kind of the university environment, what's happening in science. I kind of just read the outcomes of the science quite often. And I see what I feel is happening in the future with education and what's kind of needed in the space. What do you see that's coming or what do you see that's needed in the health and fitness space with trainers becoming educated on certain topics so that they can help their clients more?
Just ask that question again because you broke up.
Okay, apologies. So what do you see as the future for kind of areas of education and understanding in the health and fitness industry? What do you see that's coming in as an emerging or needed?
I think it goes back to evidence-based nutrition, evidence-based practice that's also linked to measuring outcomes. So, for example, being able to say to somebody, okay, so I'm going to recommend this diet and I'm going to know that the impact on your gut health, impact on your long-term health, I'm looking at telomeres, et cetera, is going to be this. So I think we're going to have, what's going to happen as we evolve in the nutrition and lifestyle world is we're going to have more ways of measuring wellness. It's going to be linked to like gut health, linked to genes. So again, we're going to go back to this idea that we're going to be more individualizing our approaches rather than just giving a generic approach.
Do you think this is where technology will start to help us do our jobs a bit better with the tracking?
I think so, absolutely. And I think that technology is going to be key in that, yeah. And obviously there's always going to be limitations to technology, but I think we're moving in that space where we are absolutely able to monitor and track things so much better.
Is there a couple of bits of technology that you like to use in your practice with your clients?
Just the basic ones. Again, I probably wouldn't, if someone, people often come to me already using things like MyFitnessPal. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I actually step away from it. Initially, I step away from it because I think it's very easy to become obsessive with it and look at calories and look at macros, but not necessarily look at food.
Yep.
So it's understanding actually that if you understand the food, then you can use the technology just to enhance your monitoring versus using technology and forgetting actually what you're actually eating.
Again, it's a coach identifying why a tool is useful and then really drawing on that. Because one of the things I've seen with tracking calories, and don't get me wrong, it's an important education process, is that people go into the app, they start using it, they track, and then they don't really pay attention to what's happening within that tracking. So actually learning, oh, there's 100 calories in my banana today. Like, I'm going to clock that rather than allowing the app to always clock it. Because otherwise you've never learned. And then if you as a coach say, do you know what, we're going to try and stop using MyFitnessPal and be a bit more intuitive, then the client's panicking because they haven't actually learned anything, and now the tool is a crutch rather than, a process of education.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And I think, using apps and tech to help with behavior change is key. And I think the one that I see works really well is the Fitbit. So just awareness of actually, it's not about doing the one gym session and then sitting on your bum the rest of the day, but actually it's about everyday movement and making everyday movement matter. And I see it time and time again, just seeing people see how their steps are dispersed over the day is really good. So they change behavior. Like, for example, they'll get off the train and stop earlier, or they'll stand up and go a little bit further to get their water, etc., so that they're constantly moving more. So if an app or technology helps you with behavior change or helps with that awareness, then absolutely great. But it's important not to become too obsessed with them.
Love that. Right, Linia, we need to wrap up. I would like people to know where to find you, know where to follow you. So let people know where you are on the internet.
Okay, so on Instagram, I'm at Linia Patel Nutrition. And on Twitter, I'm just at Linia Patel. And same Facebook page would be Linia Patel Nutrition.
Awesome. Easy to find.
Absolutely. There's only one Linia Patel out there.
That's good. I like that. When I Google Ben Coomber, it's just me. So I'm like, yeah. Right, coaches, don't let this information go over your head. Have a reflection on it. Think about how you can improve your practice as a coach. Engage in the process of, what have I learned here that can impact my clients? What would I change? Do I have to change the process, assessment, a check-in? Like, all of this is only useful if we go away and apply it. That's been me. I've been Ben Coomber. You can find me on Ben Coomber Radio on iTunes or every other podcast playing app. Otherwise, this has been the Fit Pro podcast. Go and enjoy your day. Have an awesome one and get better results with your clients. Goodbye.